Hello and welcome everyone to today's session. I hope you can hear me and you can let me know on the chat window if you're unable to do so. You should also right now be able to see my deck if that's working for you. Great, so thank you so much for joining in. And today's session is co-hosted with IBM. And the topic is to talk about how can we use personal data or personalization as a route towards influencing revenue? That's a hot topic for everyone. And really, this webinar is targeted towards those who are feeling challenged, saying, look, I have lots and lots of people who come to my website. I know a little bit about them. How do I actually use what I know in order to persuade them to actually spend a little more time, maybe have a little more engagement, and hopefully also result in conversion for you, right? So I'm going to set the stage, and then we have a very impressive lineup of speakers as well. So I'm just going to set a little bit of context and then hand it over to Manish Mittal from Chroma, who's already online as well. So let me just introduce the topic a little bit. So it's personalization as a route to revenue. And to put that in context, I just have a few data points, which is that 75% of consumers are more likely to buy from a retailer that recognizes them by name. Now, we've all experienced this in our local shops. They know you by name. They're like, oh, you're a Coke person or a Pepsi person or whatever. How do we actually translate that, make it scalable, and move that same relationship to the digital world is what we are going to talk about today. We also find that 74% of customers feel frustrated when the website content is not personalized. So that's research from Infosys, and I think that happens to us as well, right? Every time you go to a site, if you have to start right from the beginning, then it's a little frustrating. You're like, they should really know my transaction history. They should know that this is the kind of stuff that I want. Third piece of data, 77% of consumers have actually paid more for a brand that provides a personalized service or experience. Again, today there's a lot of debate saying that, is this a race to the bottom? Is there nothing more than discounting that actually sells? We're right now in the midst of festival sales, and it's all about, discount, discount, discount. So we really want to move away from that and look at how can we get people to pay for a more premium experience. Okay, I apologize if you're... Okay, we seem to have lost my deck. %58 of customers are, pretty happy to have their user buying experience tracked. That's another piece of data that I have. And what makes you buy? So, in the physical brand experience, and there is a digital brand experience. And today, most of our customers are actually looking at both. So, the reasons why you buy something could be industry trends, everyone likes it, or it could be social preference, that your friends like it. So you see this thing come up saying that all your friends like it, so you go ahead and buy that. And then you have, of course, the personal preference saying, I like it. Now, often in the physical brand experience, how this manifests is different from the digital manifestation. So for example, things like social preference, much easier to do in the online world, but personal preference, a little harder to elicit because you're not able to catch the person real time and find out. You're mostly relying on unstructured, voluminous amounts of data that you have. So I just want to put up a little bit of stuff on how does social data actually help, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with this. So one is that, from a product perspective, we could actually individualize the entire product, pricing, based on what browser he's in, where he is, anything like that. We can look at custom bundling or individual offers on the fly. Where to sell, when to sell, where to advertise. So the P's have changed really. Positioning, again, you can have an order size of one or even a segmentation with a size of one based on the data that we have. You could have, really minor stuff like this person really likes tomato on their food. And then you have customer specific offers like predictive offers, custom service levels based on consumption markers. And then of course, we can also convert that into advocacy requests. So what I wanted to say with the slide is that, the 4 Ps can change a lot based on the kind of social data markers that we have. If we could move to the next slide and the slide after that, please. Thank you. So I just have 5 steps to get personal. So the first one I want to put forward is that we should be measuring loyalty in engagement and not so much in spends. I know this is contrary to many given things, but I think that if you're loyal and if you're engaged, you will eventually purchase. Second is that we build the omni-channel customer experience, not just a marketing campaign. Today, as a consumer, I often feel that I'm just seen as this consumption machine, and it's a campaign-based approach. They're not really looking at my experience being enhanced. Third, spot and act on correlations in transaction data. Again, not the mass, hey, this is your name and this is what you should buy, but you can actually see what I've bought in the past. Can you use that to sell something new to me? The third is, of course, the broad omni-channel scope of customer activity tracking. Again, today, it feels like the offline world is very separated from the online world, but I think we're starting to see a change in that as loyalty gets carried across both the channels. And just as in the past, there was a focus saying that if you started shopping on one online channel, it should carry forward to the next online channel. Today, I think we're hoping that it's going to switch from online to offline. They would know exactly where you left off and came in. And the fifth point is that we're looking for narrow, fine-tuned segmentation, not broad-level segmentation. If you could go to the next slide, please. So I just wanted to put forward some case studies. So North Face was one where they found that their products were so good that people just didn't need to buy another one. So you bought one, you used it for 20 years, which wasn't very good for the brand from a revenue perspective. So they started this whole thing of having a conversation on the jacket, saying what activity or sport would you use this for, and then you have a conversation about their interests, and then they use that data to then, invite you or history of the brand. Any of those offline activities were carried forward based on the very personal information they were able to elicit from this. Second one, please. So the omni-channel customer, and all our slides will be available on our website, so you can take it later. But this is just a very quick framework, and if you're not already doing all of this, then it becomes a bit of a tick mark thing to see whether you actually are going to have all these modules. Because in my view, the process readiness, basically goes all the way from none to a seamless real-time flow between each of these channels that we have, as well as all of the information that we have. Next slide, please. Again, this is again an example from India, which is the Metro shoes, where again they're able to use now transaction data and mix that up with a loyalty program and really understand what customers are looking for in terms of preferences, transaction history, what kind of offers when. So that's a transformation that is underway, again, flipping between the digital and the physical worlds. And I think going forward, we are going to see many more shops look at it as a phygital world. So with that, I come to my last slide. If you could just go to 12. Yes, great. So, I want to now hand off to the next speaker, and he's really going to talk more about the same area. So over to you. So Manish comes in from Chroma Retail, and he's going to talk a little bit again about how they merge the digital and the offline worlds.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be talking to you, and it's a great start that Jessie's got us off on, because essentially she's covered most of what personalization would talk about in terms of the width of it, in terms of the need for it. So I think the good news from my perspective is I'm not going to talk about why we need personalization. I think the need for personalization is clearly established. What I'll try and do is take it more in the form of a small case study of what Chroma has been doing in the area of personalization. The original brief for this particular session had been more around how do we personalize customer journeys for a high traffic website. I'm very glad to hear Jessie also open up the topic of omnichannel, because that actually allows us to do a lot more. My slides may talk a little less about omnichannel, but I'll try and talk around them and bring you the omnichannel flavor as well. Before I move into my actual deck, the first thing that we need to start with is understanding what personalization means, right? And as Jessie said, if you were to go to a physical store, when you walk into a store, the store staff would greet you. If he can greet you by your name, he's really crossed a big barrier, because he's already made a friend of you. If he can then remember your last transaction with him, if he remembers your preferences, which brand you like to buy, which kind of products you like, whether you're a customer who prefers premium products, whether you're a customer who prefers the latest products, or whether you're a customer who would prefer to consume products more that are family oriented, the more he knows about you, the more he's able to engage with you, and the more he's already won the battle of conversation with you or of transaction with you. In the online world, what we've tried to do at Chroma is embark on a journey that tries and replicates that as closely as possible, while always being cognizant of the fact that there's a lot of things that today's technology allows one to do, but which a customer would prefer not done in terms of privacy and data sharing. So drawing that line very clearly, we've tried and kept our focus on moving step by step towards a stage where we can be very personal with the customer, but we are also cognizant that one does not achieve true personalization overnight. Jessie showed us a slide which spoke about the various blocks of technology or various blocks of initiatives that you need to have in place to get to that stage. From our perspective, we said we'll take it step by step. The end goal is that I know you individually as a customer across every channel that you operate in, whether you come to my website, whether you use my mobile app, whether you come into my store. I will know you. I will be able to predict what kind of product you're looking for right now. I will be able to have a meaningful conversation with you across channels. But that's not how we started our journey. We started our journey a little more soberly. Our starting point was essentially where most websites start their journey, which is manual experiments, rule-based experiments, A/B testing. Gradually, we moved on to personalization based on segments. What kind of behavioral segments do you fall into, and therefore, how do I present communication to you that is more suited for you? We've started moving into optimization for the crowd, or optimization based on crowd, which essentially talks more about how do I leverage what a large number of people are doing and allow that to present optimal outcomes for us. The level at which we're currently working on is, can I take it a step forward and actually start differentiating not based on segments, but based on the individual behavior of the user on the website itself or on whichever channel. The end state, however, within the current horizon that we're looking at, is how do we take it even one step further and take it into deep learning based personalization, which essentially means I bring together all the data that Jesse said from the different modules, put that data together, make meaningful sense out of it, and start then truly personalizing you based on a genuine understanding of who you are, what drives you, what kind of things you're looking for. But it's a journey. We don't claim to be anywhere close to the last step that we see right now, but the first four are areas that we've moved along over the last couple of years. So how has this journey been? What are the kind of things that one can do in these areas? I'm just trying to move to the next slide. One moment. Oops. Sorry, technology ditches us. Give us a moment, please. Um, you should be able to see my screen now. Are you able to see the screen? Okay. So the first step that we took was to introduce a whole host of things that are pretty standard stock of the trade now, but when we started off, it was quite a journey for us. We introduced features like creating a sense of urgency when we start running out of stock on certain products, figuring out or informing the customer that if the customer does not complete their transaction quickly, there's a possibility that they might actually lose out on that particular product. Now, on the face of it, sounds fairly straightforward, but practically needs the bringing together of inventory feeds, bringing together of on-site messaging, bringing together of emails going out to customers based on what pages they've been browsing, all of which put together, effectively giving us, when we ran this campaign, 100% increase in conversion for those products where we ran these stock out messages compared to products where we were not running them. Similarly, product recommendations popping up on out of stock product pages. So one of the complexities of having a high traffic site, which also has a high number of product SKUs, is that a lot of our traffic comes onto what we call the tail pages, product pages which are old products, out of life product, end of life products, out of stock products. A good amount of our traffic comes there because people are searching for products that they are familiar with, which may have gotten upgraded since, but they start product product. Was to
Manish, we are not able to hear you. No, Manish, we are still having issues. We are not able to hear you. There's a lot of this. Your voice is breaking. It's just. It's not our internet. Uh, Manish, can you hear us? Should we move to the next speaker and we'll come back to you? Can you hear? Yeah.
Yeah, this is Harsh here. Jesse, can you transfer me the control so I can share my screen? Can everyone see my screen?
We can see your screen.
And am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, great. First of all, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Harsh Anand, and I run solutions team for Watson customer engagement at IBM. So I think I'm very glad to be here and presenting my view, on personalized marketing. So just going back to what Jesse and Manish were referring, in terms of customers are engaging with brands on different channels, and understanding the customer behavior on the digital channel and on the offline channel, and kind of maintaining that context to have your seamless interaction with customers. So we're going to talk about today some of the capabilities that are required to make it happen. So let's maybe talk about the art of possible, and so let's talk about some of the use cases here. So let's say in what happens that if you can kind of understand that where your customers are there in the buying journey, right? So whether they are in the discovery phase, or they're in the comparison phase, or they're kind of in the engagement phase, or your post purchase, right? So if you can understand in terms of maybe what they have in their abandoned shopping carts, and in terms of if they are abandoning your kind of product browsing or search abandonments, maybe how can you kind of reach out to those customers and continue that conversation. I also heard during the presentation respect to your the micro segmentation or your narrow segmentation. So other thing is in terms of how do we kind of all customers are not equal, right? They have different interests, preferences, and we always kind of categorize them into, let's say, your the 2x2 quadrant of let's say your high value high frequency, high value low frequency, low value low frequency, right? So basically how we can kind of cut those segments, clusters, and understand the customer lifetime value, their product affinity, and then use that information to kind of drive your cross-sell and upsell offers. Also in terms of your ability to predict your the churn of the customers. I mean, so look at from my experience, I've seen, depending upon the line of business and category, right? Each of the business have thumb rules, right? If the customer, let's say, doesn't return 9 months from the first purchase, you consider as a lapsed customer, right? So how you can predict, from the first transaction, right, which customers have a propensity to churn, and then you can kind of, proactively engage with them and prevent the churn out. Right. The other important thing in terms of, you run kind of a lot of campaigns and all that, you have goals on your conversion. So how do you kind of look at how your campaigns are aligned to your goals and
if I extend Dipali's thought further, the key metric for the success of Chroma.com has been changed from sales on Chroma.com to how much digital influence one can drive into the stores. As I move on, we also started deploying various kinds of tools. IBM Digital Analytics is a tool that we have that allows us to analyze the kind of clickstream behavior that happens on our website. We've also implemented a tool called Dynamic Yield, which allows us to optimize what we show the customer. And what we mean by optimization is how do we achieve the ideal result for both the customer and for ourselves. Again, it starts with setting the right KPI. What is it that we want to achieve out of a particular campaign? If the objective is to, for example, increase the engagement, given that conversion online is not our primary metric, the next best metric is conversion in the store. We're not yet mastered a one-to-one tracking of every single customer online versus offline. It's something we're working towards. Therefore, the next best metric is how long does a customer stay onto the site after he's or while he's engaging with us. Using that metric, we started looking at what kind of content was keeping more and more people engaged with the site, and therefore started, through machine learning, increasing the propensity to show that kind of content, those kind of categories or those kind of products at a time when we would have multiple campaigns running. For instance, if you look at my website today, you'd see that the first banner typically for most of you would show as the OnePlus Soft or the OnePlus banner, OnePlus 5 mobile phone banner. Now, this banner is not what everybody will see, but most will see. And the reason it's the one that will be seen by most is because that's the one that most people are clicking on. Therefore, it is something that people want to engage with, and therefore more people get to see it. Again, I emphasize, I do not know the individual at this stage. I do not know your name. I do not know, I do know some of your demographics based on clickstream data, but I do not know who you are as an individual. I just know what behaviors you're depicting. I'm trying to match your behaviors with the behavior that we see for people like you, and therefore make recommendations accordingly. Again, what this has allowed us to do is increase our click-through rates from the homepage very significantly. And it's something that from early days of 1%, we're as much as 10% on some of our banners now. As we move further on, we're starting to go more and more away from rules and from doing things for the crowd. We're starting to now look at understanding each individual. Again, at this stage, without knowing who you are as an individual, but based on your behaviors, without necessarily still investing very heavily in complex tools, but using very basic tools to start keeping track of each individual user's affinities. What kind of brands has that user been looking at more? What kind of categories has he been looking at more? What price ranges are they looking at? Now, in a website like Chroma.com, one of the challenges that comes up with using this kind of affinity model is that, let's say you came to my website looking for a refrigerator today. You ended up buying the refrigerator. When you come to my site 3 months later, you're not going to be looking for a refrigerator all over again. You're probably looking for some other category entirely. So I may not want to necessarily every time correlate category and start showing you refrigerators all over again just because you saw refrigerators last time around. But I should be able to identify that you have a certain affinity towards, for example, Samsung as a brand. And because you happen to be browsing for, let's say, microwaves this time or televisions this time, I can then start looking at whether I show you Samsung products within the category that you're browsing this time. Similarly, if we observe that while you were last time browsing, or the refrigerator you ended up buying was a refrigerator that was on the higher end of the category price range. Clearly, you were a customer who was looking for products on the premium side. I test the hypothesis of whether this time when you're looking for televisions, you are likely to again prefer a product that is on the higher end or the premium range of the products, and would therefore showcase recommendations that would align to that affinity. All of this without my knowing you as an individual, all of this based on largely cookies that remain behind while you're browsing on the website, based on the data that sits there, having front-end tools that read those cookies and then allow us to tailor the offerings accordingly. This is the stage where Chroma currently is working. Starts from here is to see how we can make this same information about you available to our store manager or to our store staff when you walk into a store. There are various things that we're doing towards that, and some of them are fairly simple and straightforward. Beacons is a technology that more and more stores are starting to deploy now. We are in the process of piloting beacons as well, so that when you walk into the store, we can prompt up a message for you, and if you click on that message, then based on your cookie behavior, on your past browsing history, we can identify that what you've been doing on the website in the past, and therefore what kind of products need to be recommended to you, what staff should come up and talk to you, whether it should be the television category staff or it should be a mobile category staff, and what products they can recommend to you. The end goal, however, remains what I think everybody has been saying today, which is the holy grail of personalization, which is essentially knowing you as an individual, understanding you in depth from your behaviors across multiple channels, and then bringing all of that together into one place, regardless of where you're actually currently interacting and transacting. That is something that requires a great deal of data coming together. There's a great deal of machine learning that needs to happen. We're still ingesting a lot of data from our website. While we believe we are a reasonably high traffic website, we rank among the top 50-55 websites in the country in e-commerce in terms of the daily traffic. Yet we believe that the volume of data we have is not necessarily enough to build learnings on a daily basis. It's only as the traffic will build up over a period of time, as the data builds up over a period of time, as repeat customers keep coming in, that data will come up. So from a time horizon perspective, machine learning, deep learning models are something that we're working to see if we can bring alive across channels more in the 9 to 12 month horizon. But between now and then, we're hoping that we will be able to complete what we spoke about in the previous slide, which is personalization for the individual without necessarily always knowing who the individual is. With that, and very cognizant of the fact that I'd already taken up a large amount of the time earlier, I'd hand over back to Jessie for the conclusion, please.
Okay, you have to say now.
Yeah, thank you, Manish. I'm glad that you were finally able to present. It was really insightful.
Thank you.
So, we're still around. If there are any questions, you can, participants can just type in the chat window. And I'd like to thank all the speakers for today. This webinar was co-hosted with IBM. And thank you, Dipali and Harsh and Manish. See you again next time. We're planning to host another webinars in the first or the second week of October, and we shall keep you posted. There's also a survey which we are sharing the link now. And we request if you can spare some time to take the survey. The link is now shared in the chat window. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.